we have a passage that talks about everlasting love. Love is a topic that is discussed often in the Scriptures. Love is something which is hard to put your hands around. In the Old Testament time, the children of Israel were told that they were chosen people. They were given special directions, special covenants, and special promises. And they listened, and they became obedient, and they were given the promise that through them the Messiah would come. But as the years went on and the generations went by, there became problems, and there were many, 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 many of those of the Israelites, those that were chosen, that no longer were following His way. And at that time, God sent different prophets, but one of the prophets that He sent was Jeremiah. And Jeremiah is called the Iron Prophet. Jeremiah had the awesome task of giving prophecies after God said to him, nobody's going to listen to you. He was told, you will give these prophecies, you will tell the people what's going to happen, and nobody's going to listen to you. There were people that were still faithful, and there were people that were listening, and there were people that were saying, what is going on in our life, because things are getting so difficult. And Jeremiah was said they're going to get more difficult. And Jeremiah then wrote in poetry form the book of Lamentations. And in Lamentations, we are given these words which we use for our theme verse today. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies cease. When we look at what that means, we also have to look at the context of it, because things were happening that were just perhaps like we see in our lives. Things that are not going on that are right. And the people were wondering, why is this? And Jeremiah told them. He wrote this poem, this Hebrew poem. And sometimes when we find it very difficult to say the right words, if we're gifted, we can say in poetry which cannot be said in prose. And this is what he said. And I'd like to read this part. It's from Lamentations 3, 17 to 33. And it's going to be up here on the board. If you'd like to look at it in the guest Bible, it's on page 688. Now I looked at about 10 different translations to find just the right translation that said every word like I thought it should say. And if I could have put all the translations together, it would have made it. But I couldn't put them together. So I'm going to add some words to this. This is ESV. I'm going to, you will recognize that some of the words that are up in front of you or that you're reading are not what I'm saying. Jeremiah begins, my soul has no peace. My soul is sad. I have forgotten what happiness is. So I say, I can no longer go on. I am tired. I no longer have hope from the Lord. Remember those things that have gone wrong in my life. Remember my wanderings. Remember the diseases. Remember the bitterness. My soul continually remembers it, and it is bowed down within me. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The love of the Lord never ceases. It is always there. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. They come like the sun rises. Big red. Happiness. God is steadfast and comes every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is what I am given, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in Him. The Lord is good to those who wait for Him. To the soul who seeks Him, it is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. And the prophecy that they had heard is the salvation of the Lord was Jesus Christ, who was to come. It is good for men and women to be obedient and to learn obedience in their youth. Let them sit alone in silence when the difficulties are laid on them. Let them put his mouth in the dust as they are bowing down to the Lord. bowing down to the Lord. Turn the cheek to the one who strikes. Let him be filled with insults, because the Lord will not cast us off forever. But though grief comes into our life, he will have compassion, according to the abundance of his steadfast love. For he does not afflict from inside his heart. He does not do it to make us feel punishment. He does not do it to grieve the children of men, but he does it only because to instruct us and to bring us back. And for those that definitely defy him, he does it because they defy him. That's what Jeremiah says to us. Love in the Greek language is said in many different words. And the one word that we use most commonly when we're talking about Jesus and his love to us, as well as Jeremiah talking about the unconditional love, is agape. And agape means unconditional love. Love that just never, ever fails. It's the love that we can sometimes feel from each other, although we are so human. It is difficult. But as the people of Israel were looking for a better life, and they were told that your life is going to get better, so we are told that our life is better because of what Christ has done for us. And so we have another text which talks about, in 1 John, talks about this love of God. This is agape love. In this, the love of God was made manifest among us, was made present. That God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. And this is love. Love that is always without judgment. Love that is always unconditional. Might live through him. And this is love, not that we have loved God, not because of us, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be propitiation, or to be the payment for our sin. There's 2 points in here. You notice in the third line, so that we might live through him. The love of God is given to us so that we are above and beyond what we can do by ourselves. Because of the grace of God, we are given new clothes, we are given new charge, we are given a new abilities to live a life of love. We will fail. As we ask God, we will be forgiven. We will be strengthened. So that this love that we can share with each other and this unity that we need to be is not one of selfishness, but is one of unconditional love that Jesus gives to us. Since this is getting close to the 4th of July, I read this morning a story about a person named George. George, who lost his father when he was 11 years old. George, who had malaria and smallpox, and took medicine at that time, which was very powerful, very harmful to his health, actually. In later years, he would lose his teeth. And later years, when he wanted to have children, perhaps that was the reason he could not have children. He married a young widow and when they were both in their 20s, and he lived a good life as a farmer. But he had training in the military, and that's, even though he had to leave school after what we would call grade school, he became known as a leader. And he was drawn into a leadership potential, leadership positions. And this is, as you perhaps can guess, is this man that we refer to as the father of the United States. It was George Washington. And George Washington said this. George Washington, who was because of him, because of what God did through him, we are a free nation. George Washington said, "You do well to wish to learn our arts and way of life, and above all, the religion of Jesus Christ." The religion of Jesus Christ. These will make you a greater and happier people than you are. In Corinthians, there's a chapter that's called the love chapter. It's chapter 13. And in chapter 13, we are told, the final verse says, "So now faith, hope, and love abide, these 3. But the greatest of these is love." Faith, hope, and love abide. But the greatest of these is love. That love is what we share here. That love is what Vacation Bible School instructors, leaders, children have shared. That love is what we are able to say, to look up to the skies, and are able to say every time that sun rises, your love, Lord, is as steadfast, even more steadfast, than each morning that comes. So when we struggle with the difficulties of life, when we struggle with our own difficulties that we bring upon ourselves, or when they just happen, we turn to this verse and to the Bible and to the Scriptures and to each other, and we say, the love of God is steadfast